thank you guys so much for being here. Congratulations on your Sundance premiere. I wish we could all be together, but maybe next year. And this is certainly a lot of fun. So we're going to talk for a while about Emily the Criminal. My first question is for John, our director. John, you are someone who broke out at Sundance kind of a while ago, and I wondered about the creative path between your short patrol and now your feature, Emily the Criminal, which is getting so much good buzz before it's even premiered.
Sure, my creative path, but it wasn't always creative. Pretty rocky path. I mean, I think so. I had a student film that played at Sundance in 2010, which is 12 years ago, and at the time, it felt like I'd done it. Like I was like 27, I think, and I got like an agent and a manager and all this stuff, and I kind of thought like I'm on my way. And then it was like the salt mines for years. And I ended up writing. I wrote a script that a lot of people read, and this led to a writing job, and this led to another writing job. And then suddenly I was in the WGA and getting health insurance. And at some point I was like, whoa, this was never the plan. I wanted to, direct. But by that point you sound like this ancient cliche saying you want to direct. So I knew I'd have to kind of do it myself somehow. So I wrote the script very much to hit a certain like price point, you know what I mean? Like to be kind of likable and to appeal to actors and for myself to direct. So that's the really short version. Inside of that are a lot of real miserable details, let me tell you, but I'm happy to be here.
So when you were writing it, were you thinking of Aubrey? Because I think and I've said this before and I've written it before, when you cast Aubrey in something, there's such a specific vibe that comes along with it. Was she always your Emily?
No, not at all. And this is, kind of on me. I just wasn't really, I just wasn't quite in the know. I think when I wrote it, I wasn't imagining anyone. I was just imagining like someone off the street or something. And of course, at the time, I didn't think I'd get an actress of her caliber. So I didn't really like allow myself to think about somebody that high profile. It wasn't until after I'd finished the script that someone suggested her, which I didn't quite know what to make of that suggestion, because again, this is on me. I didn't quite know like the full spectrum of her ability as an actor. I kind of hadn't seen that much, shamefully. And then she read it and I met with her, and it completely changed my own interpretation of the script, if that makes any sense. Like it redefined it. I was like, oh, if it's this person, then X, Y, and Z. And it's at that point I'd been sitting with the script for a couple of years, and I got really excited about this new definition of my own story via Aubrey Plaza. So that's how it happened.
So Aubrey, when you read the script and you met with John, I'm always intrigued by, for someone like you who's been producing and starring in things, what is it about a script that makes you say, I want to star in it, and then I also want to produce this?
Yeah, so I read the script, and also not really, just almost just for fun. I was slipped the script, and I wasn't even in a mindset of like, thinking about being in it or producing it or whatever. I just knew it was a good writer, so I read it, and I couldn't put it down. It's like the movie, in my opinion. It just flies. It's so entertaining, and the character just jumps off the page. Yeah, I think it's really rare to read a really great script that you can see the movie. Like I saw the whole thing in my head. I met with John pretty quickly after I read it, and he told me he wanted to direct it, and I love that because it's just always exciting when someone wants to direct what they wrote, and it feels like it's coming from a real personal place. Yeah, the character felt like something that I hadn't done before, and an opportunity for me to kind of do something different. And then also I just really just want to make a great film. And I believed in this from the beginning. And I think producing, I don't have to produce every movie that I'm in or anything like that. But I think when you're talking about small independent films, especially nowadays, it's just so hard to get them made. And so I think just having the support in that way coming from me, I knew would help just get the movie off the ground or get it made. And then, John and I really clicked when we met, and I felt like we were totally on the same page every step of the way. So it just felt like a natural kind of collaboration or something.
So Tyler, for you as a producer who's produced some of our other favorite indies, what's it like when you also have a star who is a producer? Are you talking to Aubrey like, okay, Aubrey the star and then Aubrey the producer? Is there a hat switch there, or is it all the same?
Yeah, well, there are stars who are producers and there are stars who are real producers. Aubrey is the latter, which I was thrilled to discover. You never really know how that's going to work going into the filmmaking equation. Obviously, she's got her hands full as the star of the film. But she was completely engaged on a producing level as well from day one. And honestly, I tell her this all the time, how grateful I am for her partnership, because it's a lot to produce an independent film. My company, Low Spark, was also bringing the financing and creatively producing. So to have that support from Aubrey as a serious, real producer, has been invaluable.
Yeah, sometimes you feel like it's someone just putting their name on it, but looking at the films that Aubrey produces, it's like, no, it feels a little different. Some people have described the film as a female drive, and I was hoping that everyone could go around and say how they would describe the film, maybe using another film, potentially another film that has a piece of clothing as recognizable as the drive jacket, which is something I still think about year after year. If everyone wants to go around.
Well, I'll start. I like to say if Ingrid Goes West was my king of comedy, that this is my taxi driver. I don't know if that's actually accurate, but that's just something to say. There's my answer.
You're asking a dork. Like, I don't know how to say it in a way that's going to sound good in a magazine. Like, I'm going to have to give you the film school version, and I'm sorry. It is the movie that Jacques Audiard would make if he lived in Los Angeles. And that was
Okay.
the idea for me from the jump, even before I wrote it. So it's basically like a French thriller that takes place in LA.
I mean, that's perfect. Tyler, what do you think?
Oh, wow. Well, we did talk about a number of comps, comparable films early on, and the Audiard canon was something that came up. But honestly, I get the taxi driver thing too. What's the movie that where Jake Gyllenhaal is the rogue?
Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler. I think there's something with the moral ambiguity in the rogue kind of aspect of the main character where that comes to mind. I really hadn't thought about that much before, but it very much has that, as Aubrey said, like taxi driver, Travis Bickle type rogue, morally compromised, but interesting character. So that's for me.
Haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. They haven't seen it.
But
Yeah, it's unfair.
But based on the great script that John wrote, I would say I have no comps. It was super, super authentic writing. And that was one of the things that drew me to it, was that I hadn't read anything like it. Like Aubrey said, the character really popped. The characters really popped, and I could really see the story.
Theo, what do you think?
I would say Empire Strikes Back meets like Titanic.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that. And then it's like feels those two for sure. And then like the final act is like Avatar.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I can
I like
see the headline. It's perfect. You guys, not everyone has seen it. I have not yet seen it, but we know obviously that Aubrey is playing a criminal. But I know between Megalyn and Theo, your characters, I know at least one of them is also a criminal. So I was hoping that you could explain your characters in relation to Emily and what people can expect to see from you two, who are longtime IndieWire favorites, who have been working for a long time. But I feel like this is going to be something different, just like it's something different for Aubrey.
Yeah, I think, when I read the script, Aubrey was already attached. So so it was super exciting to read it, with her in mind. And then I met with John, and we talked about Liz, and I think we talked about sort of like complicated friend dynamics and how those sort of work, and how we sort of all have them in our lives. And I certainly have complicated friend dynamics. So it was really cool to kind of bring that relationship to the screen, because I hadn't ever had an opportunity to do that, and to do it with Aubrey, because we I know that we work really well together, and I hope that comes across on screen. But yeah, Liz is, you know, I think a great, like a mirror in a way, like a bounce back for Emily's character that I hope added a lot to the film.
Yeah, I think you are also a criminal in the film.
Well, that's the beauty of the script and the story that's being told, is that what you think might not necessarily be true. And I think that's what keeps you on the ride, is like you go in from jump, like seeing something of what people's behavior and nature is, and you think you have it figured out, and you just might not, right? It's like Carl Jung said, right? The shadows that people have, and when you get in touch with the dark sides of your shadows. I mean, I think that the journey we see Emily go on as a character and the people that are involved in it, we really get to see the entire nature of a human being, like their entire stuff that they might have not realized about themselves. And sometimes, just like we are as people, we need others to bring that out, right? That we don't even know about ourselves. And I think that that's what John did so brilliantly here, is that we get to reveal these characters in each beat of the film. And that's why I think it kind of just, the film moves, right? From what I know, like in what I've seen in ADR, and obviously reading the scripts, and, you know, I haven't watched the film. I'm sure I will, but I think that it moves like tremendously. And I love that. And I love with Emily, I get to see who she is in the beginning and who she is at the end. And that's all I want in my stories that I watch, right? I want to go on a ride with the human emotions of someone. And I think Aubrey, you know, I hope she's not listening. She's incredible in this film. And, you know, I always, I don't say it much because I don't necessarily, because it's hard to say, but she just went for it. She's like one of the best actors I've ever worked with, ever.
Shut up.
Yeah, she is. And she's not listening. So whoever said that, just go away. But she went for it incredibly. And like, there was never a moment where we weren't going to go and like, go. It was like, we're going and we're in this. And we knew, and we were on a rocket ship. And I felt like, you know, when we would sit there with John and like, we would just, and Tyler, and like, we knew we're going to get this and we're going to make this the best thing that we can. I don't know what it's going to be like after this. I just know in this moment, and serving Emily's story, her journey, her coming of age in this short time. So how Youcef impacts that, yeah, you'll see.
Aubrey, now you could say something nice about Theo.
No,
if
don't.
You wanted.
Don't.
No, I definitely will. I mean, first of all, we all went for it. I mean, like, I don't know what it was. Like, there was some kind of, I think the script like has this like energy where it just doesn't stop. It's like relentless. And I think the movie is just so perfectly cast. Like there's just nobody else that could have played those parts for Youcef and Liz. Like Theo and Megalyn, just, they crushed it. I don't know what else to say. Like, I feel the same way. Like, it felt like when we were doing it, like we were all willing to just like, you know, drive off the ledge together. And we were in it. Like, it's my favorite kind of experience. It's what I want always from like shooting an independent film. I want to be surrounded by people that are just passionate and talented and willing to just, like Theo said, go for it. And I feel the same way about Theo and Megalyn. I feel like I was so lucky to have them, because we all just really took care of each other in that way, I think.
Yeah, I was going to ask about shooting during the pandemic. And I often hear from people that they feel like they either bond much more intensely with their cast and crew, or they're very siloed off from them because of like literal safety issues. It feels like you guys are pretty bonded, but how did that impact, how does, you know, the COVID of it all impact how the film was made?
I mean, the actual production itself, I felt wasn't that impacted by the COVID protocols, you know, like everyone was wearing masks and we had to follow certain, but it's like, you're still making a movie, you know, and you still kind of shift into this gear of like this familiar gear of like how you behave when you make a film. And like after day 1, day 2, I just kind of forgot that we, you know, were wearing masks and distancing and stuff like that. But the real way that it impacted the movie was during pre-production, which was bananas for me, because I had to cast the movie completely by watching self-tapes, and I was never able to do any chemistry reads. I was never able to meet any actors in the room or pair two of them together and see how they vibe or interact. For instance, I never met Theo Rossi until 3 days before production started. Never met him. I just had to cast him based on like 2 Zoom calls, one of which Aubrey was on. And like,
this is the first time I've seen John without a mask. I don't even know what he looks like.
he has no idea what I look like. Yeah. Just that part of it. There was a great, like, I had to just give myself over to it and be like, I'm not going to have as much control as I typically do. I'm going to have to, like, you know, go with God on this. And that was awesomely impactful. The other thing is that we shot in a lot of real locations during the movie, many of which were just like bustling with people. Like we shot at this flea market in downtown LA that was nuts. Like literally thousands of people there. We couldn't control anything that was going on. And everyone's wearing a mask. And the movie does not really take place during COVID. So we had to adapt our shooting style in a way that would kind of like not allow the audience to focus too much on the background. Another big thing was like, when does this movie take place? As you can imagine, if you're prepping a movie in the spring of 2020 or 2021, like you're just like, what is the audience going to be? Like if this comes out in a year and a half or something, like if you see someone shaking hands in a movie, is that going to strike you as unrealistic? If you see people not like, what will the world look like? It was like making a movie for an audience that I don't know anything about, who have different rules and who live in the future. That was the real challenge of creating the movie during COVID. And we kind of erred on the side of just forget COVID, you know, like just make it, if it comes out and it seems like a period piece, like so be it. Because if we incorporate specific COVID stuff, it might date the movie or it might just make it seem specific in a way that's distracting, you know?
Having not seen the film, I do know that it involves a credit card scam, and you can tell me if that's not right, but there's been so much entertainment and there's more stuff coming about scammers of all kinds. I'm thinking of like Elizabeth Holmes and the WeWork people, and I wondered why you all think people are so interested in scammers in terms of cinematic characters.
I don't know, like I can only speak for myself, but I feel like the spirit, there's a kind of underlying, you know, theme in this film about making your own rules. And in some ways I feel like, you know, the system, economy, whatever you want to call it, the man, whatever you want to call it, is like the villain of the film. Like it's about someone that's, you know, being punished by the system, and she has to make her own rules. And so scamming is, I think, like kind of an obvious petty crime, I guess you would call it. But I think it's like people are interested in it because it's fun to break rules, and it's fun to watch someone break rules. It's dangerous, you know, and it's like something you can dabble into as it, and maybe it's like slightly aspirational for some people. I don't know, but I think it's just fun to watch people break rules, I guess.
I don't know if people are more into it now, especially because we're all sort of at home and we're all watching shit from our couches and we feel sort of out of control. Like we can't, everyone's like maybe sort of frustrated and shut in and feels like everything's spinning out of control. And yeah, and you can, like with the scamming, it's like you get to be in control and you get to just like, yeah, like you said, Aubrey, make your own rules. And also you can it's like a way of turning, you know, having an outlet for your desperation and your anger, you know, like, and your rage, you know, you can feel alive, you know?
Yeah. What do you think? You seem to have something percolating.
No, as you create a division between the have and have nots, a bigger division, you know, between with corporate power rises and, you know, others just feel like they can't get ahead, right? Student debt mounts, you know, all these things, health insurance, you know, whatever, people are going to find a way. It's just the way it goes, right? If history tells us anything, is that people are going to find a way. You know, nature doesn't lose, and that includes humans. They will find a way. So credit card scam is just one, you know, aspect of it. But people are going to do anything because survival kicks in, right? Especially as it's being egregiously rubbed in your face, you know, that people are, you know, we celebrate billionaires, we celebrate, you know, people who just make, you know, tons of money. And there's people on the outside being like, hey, what about me? And they start to feel helpless. And when people feel helpless, they're dangerous. And it starts to reveal who they truly are. I think what Aubrey said and what Megalyn said and John said, you know, about the system is the enemy, because ultimately you're setting people up to lose in a lot of systems. And we're so, you know, busy with nonsense that we don't see it, right? And I think that this is one that just someone says, enough is enough. And how and where that goes and how far that goes with it is, you know, some people might agree and some people might be we love the anti-hero. We love the underdog. We love thinking, why, let's do this. So we jump on that ride with Emily because she is kind of like, for lack of a better word, sticking it to the man in a way. And that's what we want. We all want that in one way or another. So
it's like so much courage. You have to be brave and you have to be like, fuck it. And most people are going to do it.
Here's the big surprise to people. Most people who commit crime don't want to. Okay. That's the big surprise. People don't enjoy doing it. You know what I mean? I'm only saying this from whatever. You do it because you have to do it. So then you might as well be great at it. You might as well be good at it. You don't want to be a bad criminal. You want to be a good criminal. And that's, you know, that's the coolest thing about this film.
I can tell you that when I was writing the script, I was at a point in my life where I felt like I had done everything right technically. Like I had like always been a good student and like never got in trouble or whatever. And like went to school and like did everything and graduated. And I felt like I had been misled. I felt like I had followed the rules. And suddenly you reach a point where you realize, oh, the rules were written by someone who just wants to profit from me. The rules were not written for me to thrive. This is, I think, part of being an adult and maybe part of maturity is coming to understand that this is sort of how it works. There was a kid I went to 10th grade with who was a complete idiot and he dropped out to drive a dump truck and he's a millionaire now because he owns a dump truck company.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So I think around this time, I just felt like the people who make their own rules are very often the most successful. And very often in my life, the people who I've met who reject normative rules and regulations and who are perhaps even a little sociopathic in their ability to focus on just what's best for them are flying themselves to space on a rocket while their own workers can't afford healthcare.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
so,
quite literally.
As
very
I
much,
grab my package outside.
I just want to honor that that anger and that rage and that disparity that I sometimes felt at the time. And I think a lot of other people feel all the time.
Aubrey, the last time that you and I talked, which was somehow like a year ago, you had been talking about writing what you hoped would be your feature directorial debut. And I just wanted to check in on that with you. You've certainly kept very busy since then.
Yes, I have. Working on it, plugging away, getting very close. It's definitely something that I want to do. So I'm working on it. I'm trying not to be too precious about it, but hopefully it will be something I can actually talk about in the near future.
I think that sort of flows into my last question, which is sort of a general thing. What is your advice for your younger self as you're getting into the film industry? Basically, what do you wish you would have known that you didn't know before?
I think my advice would be like, don't, worry about what anyone else thinks about your choices or your decisions or how you're coming off or anything. Like just follow your heart and do projects that just like make you, feel inspired, because I think a lot of times you can get wrapped up in trying to think about, your career, everything as a career move or everything, in terms of like what other people think. Or for me, like I definitely had a moment after I got off Parks and Recreation where I felt like I have to prove myself, or I have to do this, or I have to like, show people whatever. And like part of that is cool because it fuels you to do things. But I think at the end of the day, it's like none of that really matters. It's really just, I'm happiest when I'm doing something that I truly believe in and not something that I'm doing just because I think I should do it or something. So I guess that would be my advice now for my younger self, is just like, fuck everybody. Just do what, not in a bad way, but just do you always.
I'll piggyback on what Aubrey said. It's interesting because when I think about that, I really almost feel like I want to borrow wisdom, for lack of a better word, from my younger producing self, as opposed to giving wisdom to that younger self. And what I mean by that is that when you don't know what you're doing, there's a certain freedom in that by default you're making bold choices. And as I've been doing this for a number of years now, and you start to learn maybe what all the restrictions in the industry might look like. It takes a real concerted effort to maintain that commitment to bold choices, but that is the only way through as an independent filmmaker. So I guess I kind of have an opposite take on the nature of the question, but that's what I would say.
I would say don't listen to anybody, but learn from everybody. I mean, I started as like an extra in this thing. It's a terrible business. People are terrible, most of them. You know what I mean? Like they're terrible. It's a terrible place. If you stay on the outside long enough, like me, you look at them and you go, whew, these people are awful. But that being said, there are some truly amazing people. You get in a flow state occasionally, and like you get with those people, your group, and you almost, I wish I knew that earlier, that you got to find those, right? You got to find that, because you can conquer the world with those kind of people in this terrible business, because they eventually fall away anyway. You know what I mean? Those kind of people, they eventually fall away. So like I said, don't listen to anybody, but learn from everybody. And, you know, it's a business driven by ego. And, you know, once you get rid of that, success is on the other side. And that's, you know, again, I'm not saying it because we're on this, because I don't care. Obviously, I'm too old, I'm too tired. Is that when you have a group like this is why we're sitting here, because you have a group of people that genuinely like each other, that want to make the best project, that have a great project, and that truly will do anything to make sure it's the best project. That's a rarity. It's not like that on everything. So it's those moments that you go, I'll do whatever it takes. And you felt like that on the day, and you feel like that now. And that to me is the essence of independent filmmaking. It's the essence of filmmaking. It's the essence of art. So, you know, it's not a solo sport, as much as people want to say that in acting. It's not. It's all of us together. So we just happen to be in one of those situations where we have some really great people, Megalyn, Aubrey, John, Tyler, and tons of other people. So that's how things like this happen. So listen to nobody, but learn from everybody, and be aware. Awareness is the key of everything. You know, once your eyes are open to it, you're good.
Piggybacking on everything everyone else has said, I completely agree that if I were talking to my younger self, I would say, like, don't second guess yourself. Like, you know, and if you're happen to find yourself surrounded by like super talented people, like you're supposed to be there. So, and because you followed your instincts and you didn't second guess yourself, like you said, Tyler, like you're just going blindly, but you're on the right path. So, you know, everyone tries to make you feel like you don't know what you're talking about, especially when you're younger, or like they have more power, they have more knowledge than you, but they really don't, because, you know, talent is talent. If you're good, you're good. And everyone's just making it up. We're all just making this shit up as we go. Like nobody knows what they're doing. So just, yeah, follow your heart, follow your instincts, you know, have a talent for your talent, and surround yourself with great people. I think that's all really good advice for us, for the young folks.